I got it. I'm recording. Michael, if you could read the statements, please.
The TJPDC Policy Board are meeting this evening, July 22nd at 4 p.m. with a quorum of voting members through electronic virtual communication of Zoom software application. The meeting agenda and virtual meeting address has been posted for 1 week at 401 Water Street East on the TJPDC website and provided to local media outlets and provided to the general public and policy board members contemporaneously. This meeting is open to public viewing and public comment will be allowed through electronic communication at such time as provided on the meeting agenda. As a public body, the MPO Policy Board is allowed to meet utilizing virtual meeting procedures and policies as outlined in item 4.1-01 of the Virginia State Budget, HB 29. Item 4.0-01 allows public bodies to meet through electronic communication means during emergency declarations, such as the current COVID-19 emergency. The governor has declared a state of emergency. The nature of this declared emergency makes it impracticable or unsafe for the public body to assemble in a single location. The purpose of meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body. The TJPDC shall make available a recording of the meeting on its website in accordance with the timeframes established in 2.2-3707 and 2.2-3707.1 of the Code of Virginia. The nature of the emergency, the fact that the meeting was held by electronic communication means, and the type of electronic communication means by which the meeting was held shall be stated in the minutes of the public body. We will begin by calling attendance of the policy board members and then TJPDC staff members. We ask that you keep your communication devices on mute until you prepare to speak. In addition, you may use the raise hand or chat feature to indicate that you would like to speak or ask a question, and the host will call on you. We ask that the public stay on mute except for the public comment periods to cut down on background noise. Those wishing to speak during the hearings or public comment periods are asked to use the raise hand or chat function of the Zoom program to indicate that you would like to speak. The meeting host will call your name and then you can unmute yourself and speak to the group. If you prefer to speak using the chat feature, the host can read your comments to the group. To see the raise hand feature on your screen, click on Participants at the bottom of your screen. The raised hand button will be at the bottom left of your screen under the list of participants.
Thank you. I'll call the roll now for the board members. Ann Malik.
Present.
Oh, good. And you can hear us okay, Ann?
I was on my computer before and I could see you all talking but couldn't hear a thing, so I'm now on my phone until I get my computer rebooted. I don't know why I couldn't hear you.
Okay. Sometimes on my computer I have it on mute and I forget that my speakers, I have it on like no sound. I forget that I have it on there. I don't know if that helps. Lloyd Snook. Is Lloyd here? Michael Payne.
Present.
Ned Galloway. Thought I saw Ned. Ned Galloway. John Lynch.
Present. Good afternoon.
And as far as staff goes, Lucinda Shannon, that's me, I'm here. Chip Boyles, Sandy Shackelford, Gretchen, Sarah Pennington, Jessica. Is there anybody else from TJPDC who's here? So we're missing Ned Galloway and Lloyd Snook. It's like, but we still have a quorum? Okay. Okay. So go ahead, Michael.
All right. Should we begin matters by the public if anyone wants to speak?
If anybody would like to speak, you can unmute yourself and speak now. You could also raise your hand or type in the chat feature.
Hey, Lucinda, this is Peter Krebs. May I speak?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, I hadn't muted myself before, so I didn't have to unmute myself. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this week has already set a record for the longest week, and it's only Wednesday. So thank you for your perseverance, and I know you're gonna be staying late this evening. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the smart scale process. You guys are going to talk about it, I think, item number 8 on the agenda. And I don't have a prescription for you guys, just something that I thought I would observe. So the board had their board of supervisors meeting, the board of supervisors, about their smart scale. And they had a pretty controversial project that they decided needed more time for the community to work through. And so they decided, like, okay, so we'll do that in the next round, perhaps. On Monday night, City Council also had a pretty controversial proposal, and their decision was a little different. They decided that the smart scale funding kicks in a little while, and there would be time to do community engagement prior to the funding even landing. So they went ahead and went forward with that. And whatever, it's all good. I support the logic behind both decisions. It's not there's no right answer. But clearly there does need to be some kind of way of learning more from the public, but on the other hand, also still being able to go forward with projects that are more or less okay, but have issues to work through. In the memo, it looks like you're sort of walking that tightrope pretty well by maybe pulling out a couple of items that need a little bit more refinement. And I also just wanted to say that, like we did with the development of the regional plan, PC would love to work with the planning district and working closely with the community when it's needed. And in fact, I think the donor community right now is very, very cognizant of the importance of community engagement. So I think this community discovery process should be funded, but I also think the private sector will be able to participate with some funding for that important research. That's all I have for this evening, and I look forward to watching the meeting. Maybe I'll check in at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any other public comments?
All right, well, we could close public comment and move on to the third agenda item.
So that's the TIP amendment, and this is the Transportation Improvement Program. And when we amend the TIP over a certain amount of money, we have to make an amendment instead of just an adjustment. So we would like the policy board to approve this adjustment or amendment. And basically it is to, and I apologize, I made a mistake during drafting this memo. So it was a really small mistake. I'll pull up the new TIP block. It was, we have so basically the VDOT, who maintains our roads for us, is reallocating money for the road maintenance. And they have added in fiscal year. So here's the two blocks for it. The TIP is mostly just allocating funds for roads and maintenance. So the old table, the cost for fiscal year 20 and 21 has
the tables aren't showing on the screen right now, just so you know. It's just a black screen.
Okay, hold on, I'm sorry. let's see. There we go. Sorry. Thanks, Sandy. Can you see it now? Okay. So in the transportation improvement program, the table, the table on the top was the original one that has fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21, not a lot of funding. There's a little over $2 million in fiscal year 20, and the same for fiscal year 21. In the new table, they've added quite a bit of money to fiscal year 20, and they haven't changed fiscal year 21. So that's kind of all there is. They just added more money for maintenance for the roads. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
I don't.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the agenda. So we're having a public hearing. It's required to have a public hearing on this. So we can start the public hearing now. And if there's any comments or questions on this item from the public, please raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself and speak now, or type in the chat box. Looks like I'm unmuting Ann there. Seem to unmute Ann.
Thank you. I'm ready now. I'm going to mute myself until I'm ready, but thank you for letting me in.
Okay. All right. Any comments from the public? Okay. We're going to close the public hearing and go back to the agenda. Let's see. Okay. And the next item is, so I would like to ask the board if they could approve this amendment. If anybody wants to make a motion to approve it.
I make a motion to approve the tip amendment. Sorry.
Second. And a seconding.
All right. Everyone in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, the motion carries 3-0 or 4-0. I'm not sure who's on the call.
I think
Yeah,
Ned did show up, right?
Yeah, I'm here for this vote. Should we just state our name when we do the vote so it's clear for the record?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Works. Ned,
Yes.
who? Forgive me.
I can do a roll call. Do you want me to do a roll call?
That works.
Okay, Ann Malik,
Yes.
Lloyd Snook. I don't think Lloyd's here. Michael Payne,
Yes.
Ned Galloway,
Yes.
John Lynch.
yes.
Yeah, I would recommend just who's running the meeting that we do roll calls just for the virtual meeting, so it's very clear who's voting and how.
Definitely. Forgive me and feel free to correct the errors I'm sure I will make.
Oh, please, doing awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying not to like run the meeting because I don't want to overstep.
Well, I will
boundaries.
not be offended in any way.
Okay, so thank you for that vote. And we can move on to the next item on the agenda. Which is item 4, general administration. So you want to review and approve our current agenda. You want to make a motion to do that?
I'd make a motion to approve our current agenda.
Yeah.
And second?
And
Okay.
roll call.
Okay. Ann Malik,
Yes?
Lloyd Snook, Michael Payne,
Yes.
Ned Galloway,
Yes.
John Lynch.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. The motion carries 4-0.
So the next item on the agenda is the November meeting is the day before Thanksgiving. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and then ask if you guys wanted to try to reschedule that meeting or decide not to hold it. This previous November, it kind of snuck up on us and we weren't able to meet. So I wanted to bring it up ahead of time just to see what the committee wanted to do.
I will raise my hand here. Let's see. How do I do that?
We can hear you, Ann. You can just go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to raise my hand. In the past, we have occasionally moved it to the first week of December and had a combined November-December meeting. So I would throw that out there if others think that's a reasonable approach.
That would work for me.
Now, of course, it couldn't be on a Wednesday. That's lovely. Let's see. How do we do this? Okay. The conflict is the county board would meet on December 2nd. So if there was, you'll have to perhaps send around a doodle or something to do that week or some other day.
So somebody could make a motion to ask staff to send a poll to try to schedule the November meeting for the first week in December.
Make a motion to, so moved.
You actually don't need a motion if there's just a consensus on that.
Okay, does anybody object to staff trying to schedule a meeting in the first week of December? Okay, I will do that. The next item is approval of the May 27th meeting minutes, and Anne had some changes which I've made. Anybody else has any comments on those meeting minutes?
I move adoption of the minutes as corrected.
Second.
I'll call roll. Ann Malik,
Yes?
Michael Payne,
Yes.
Ned Galloway. Ned, you might be on mute.
He had to step away for a second.
Oh, okay. John Lynch,
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
so I think the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, and it's a formal resolution of support for the government, local government smart scale projects. So with smart scale, the TJPDC is submitting 4 projects on behalf of the city. The MPO is submitting 3 projects on behalf of the county. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. So,
Lucinda, the MPO is submitting 2 projects for the hydraulic 29 solutions package.
yeah, we're gonna talk about that later.
Right, and then we're submitting 1 project on behalf of Albemarle.
Right.
And then the PDC is 3 projects on behalf of Albemarle and 1 project that's a joint project with the city and Albemarle.
Okay, all right. So yeah, the item number 5 is only for the projects. It's only supporting the projects that the local governments and the TJPDC are submitting. And then item number 6 is a separate resolution to support the projects that the MPO, that this policy board would be submitting on behalf of the county. So the first item that we're going to talk about is number 5, the formal resolution of support for local government smart scale projects. And there's 3 kind of handouts in your packet. There's a summary of the projects that are being submitted. And then there's a summary, there's a report that is a summary of the comments that we collected during the public workshop period in May. And then there's the resolution, the support of local projects that we're asking you if you would like to sign to support the projects. So I don't know if you want to go through the projects or the comments.
I don't know.
Lucinda, I think it would be helpful if you at least pulled up the list of projects so everybody could see
Yeah.
on the screen.
So here are the projects. That's the MPO projects, the TJ. So this is the TJPDC projects are the 107 Park and Ride lot, the 5th Street Hub and Trails, Route 29 Shared Use Path is not, Route 29 Shared Use Path, 29 Frays Mill Burnley Station intersection improvements. And then the City of Charlottesville is submitting West Main Street Phase 3, Emmett Street Multimodal Phase 2, Preston Ave and Grady Ave intersection improvements, Ridge Street multimodal improvements, and then Albemarle County is submitting the access management on US 250 East from Virginia 20 Stony Point Road East to Hanson Road, John Warner Parkway Rio Road intersection improvements, Belvedere Rio Road intersection improvements, the Old Lynchburg Road 5th Street exit County Office Building intersection improvement, and Route 2053 intersection improvements. We have Chuck here if you guys have any questions about those. That is what is in this resolution, to have the board support those applications to the state for funding for those projects.
And then at Albemarle's last board meeting, they pulled one of their smart school applications. Is that separate from everything that's in here?
Yes.
Yes.
There was a Route 20 shared use path pre-application that Albemarle board supervisors chose not to support, and that has been removed.
Okay.
Just for clarity, that was an MPO potential project, but even for the MPO projects, we request the local support and require the local support. And so Albemarle County decided against recommending to the MPO to submit, and therefore the MPO pulled that project.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that cleared it up, but I promise it is a little bit more detail about it.
Okay. No, that clears it up. And I guess the only comment I would have is just, as was mentioned in public comment at our city council meeting on Monday, there was a lot of discussion around the Preston Avenue and Grady Avenue improvements. And it was approved by City Council, but there was just a really strong desire to ensure that it has a really robust community engagement piece to it and a strong desire to have a small area plan with it. But I'll just note that. Is any motion required for approving this?
May I interrupt? I have a question. Is Chuck available to give us any possible update on Burnley Station design? Because that's another thing where the county voted 4-2 to keep going with this plan, but it has tremendous negative connotations on the part of the public. So there's a lot more work that's going to happen.
We haven't really, this is Chuck, we haven't really made any additional changes to the concept moving forward. If we need to do some more outreach to the public, we can do that. If the project's funded, we'll obviously have public hearings and more outreach to the public, but we hadn't really changed anything in the application or the concept since what was presented to the county at the previous meetings.
So I have a question, Sandy or Chip. Albemarle County had 5 applications, but I'm seeing they only have 4 on here.
Yeah, they had, it had to do with Briar Road, and they were trying to decide whether they wanted to combine the applications together or keep them separate. So I don't think they have, as far as I know, they have not made that determination yet. But they had asked for 5 projects in the pre-application. And so they were trying to determine how to get there for.
And I think Kevin McDermott is on the call. He can fill that in because I do think each of the local governments were able to submit 5 projects to be scored, but only 4 can be submitted for funding. But Kevin may want to provide more information.
Yeah, thank you. This is Kevin McDermott, Transportation Planner for Albemarle County. I'm looking at this right now. You have Route 20 and Route 53 on here as well?
So, yeah,
oh, okay.
It's on the next page. Yeah, so there are 5 projects on here.
That's it. That was the problem. We currently have 5 potential projects, and one of those is going to be removed before we finalize this. We're still going to work with our board on that. But at this point, we're not sure if we're going to combine the John Warner Parkway Rio Road intersection with Belvedere or break those out and only do one of them. So at this time, I think the county would like resolutions on all of these projects as they're listed here, even though we know one of them will have to be removed before we make that submission.
Okay, so the policy board could decide to support all of the projects as they're listed in this document on the packet, or you could decide to support some of the projects or not to support them at all. I have prepared the resolution as if we're supporting them all, but I can change it if you decide to do something else.
I would move to have the policy board support all the listed projects.
Second.
I'll call a roll. Ann Malik?
Yes.
Lloyd Snook? Not. Michael Payne?
Yes.
Ned Galloway? Ned, are you on mute?
He stepped away for a
thought he was back. Okay, John Lynch.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. Go to the next item on the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is a formal resolution of support for the MPO smart scale applications. And those applications are so actually there's been some changes. So the resolution that we're asking you to, there's been some changes to the 29 Fontaine Avenue interchange improvement. And so what we're asking tonight is a resolution to support Hillsdale Drive South extension and the Hydraulic Road and US 29 extension. And then in September, we will ask you to support the Fontaine Ave interchange improvement. And this now, Chip, I'm not sure how you want to handle that.
Yeah, I think there have been some recent changes to the US 29 and 9 and Fontaine Avenue that I think are sizable, and we just didn't feel comfortable asking you to make a decision based on only what you would see today. Changes right up until a couple of hours ago that we got information. And if acceptable, what we'd like to do is have some type of a community engagement virtual meeting during August, and then come back to you for a final resolution for that one project in September, but hopefully be able to approve the other two to go forward. And Kevin or Chuck, I mean, I wouldn't want to try to get into too much detail of the design changes, because I know that you're constantly kind of working on them now. But if there are questions about it, or if you feel something that needs to be said, you know, please, I think it would be appropriate.
This is Chuck. I'll speak up. Yes, we took the original document, the DDI that was submitted during round 3 of Smart Scale, and we tried to look at it and come up with a concept, modify it to that would cost less and have less impacts. We did that, but it took a long time. We just recently finished that concept, and we have it available, but we felt that we needed to, like Chip said, since it really hasn't had any public review by even the Board of Supervisors, we wanted to make sure we were able to get some review of the concept before we finalized the application. So that's why I think we wanted to hold off. It's a significantly less costly concept, but it is significantly different. So those things being said, we have that concept that we maybe present, or we can send it out, but we thought we would take some time to review it and to get input before we finalize the application, which is due to 17th. So we wanted to get your feedback on how you wanted to proceed with this process moving forward. And then, like I said, we'll come back in September and to vote on whether you are going to support it or not. But we need you to provide some guidance to the staff on what we want to support. You don't have to have that decision today, but we're going to need some kind of guidance so that they can submit the application by the deadline in August 17th.
I can try to schedule a meeting for the public to go over, and the policy board, everybody to go over the Fontaine Ave interchange improvement changes to the project. It'd have to be pretty tight, like in the next week or two, if you want me to try to do that.
That seems reasonable to me, but I don't really have many thoughts on it. I don't know if anyone else does.
May I? Is it my turn?
Yes.
This is Ann. The board will have to hear about this on August 5th because I haven't even gotten to be able to look at the video yet that came out this afternoon. I guess my question is, so all the work that we did so far is now thrown out by somebody who is now substituting a whole new plan that nobody knows about. And is that the only choice we have on this, to have this abrupt change happen now? It took us a year to get used to the last sort of outside the box plan that was put forth. So I would like a little predictability here about what the process is going forward, so that, and John Lynch perhaps should best approach, talk about this, or Chuck, either one. And then we'll have to get all of our ducks in a row to be able to learn about this at the board level in August.
Yeah, this is John Lynch. Just quickly, I think the process that the team has been going through is been trying to refine the concept to reduce the costs and pretty much try to salvage the benefits, so your cost benefit for the scoring is higher and gives it more chance for funding. So I think on a big picture level, you still have an alternative intersection type of project. It's just the movements are a little bit different to try to reduce some of the significant costs from the original concept. So I think it is worth waiting for, so to speak, to look at it and see if it's feasible from a public support standpoint, because if that is the case and that one moves forward, you'll have a much better chance of securing the funding.
Thank you. And could you also clarify that if or if not, what you're just described has anything to do with what I thought was already funded, left turn, crossover, all the movements going to the east to prevent for the trucks turning west from 29 north onto 64 west, because I thought that process was beginning to start. And so would you please clarify all of that?
Well, the projects that are in the Albemarle bundle are all under construction. So that includes the changes at the interchange. So removing the one loop ramp and putting in a dual left, as well as the dual exit ramp for Fontaine. And I believe, and Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, that the current project we're talking about, the interchange improvements, is the one that'll facilitate the truck U-turns.
The one that's in process now. Okay, thank you. And
and this is Chip. I just want to be clear, because I think there might be some miscommunication here. I believe you're asking about the northbound traffic on 29 that turns to go west on 64. That is not under construction nor approved for funding. That is in the Fontaine Avenue project that's on the screen.
Oh, all right. Well, that makes all the difference in the world, because from what John said, I thought it was the other. So now, thank you for clarifying that. So this project that we've been trying so hard to get for so many years is what is now being radically changed. Okay, so we will have more to do about that. And since my phone is now working at the moment, John, could you address if there are any changes about the Burnley Station question, since I think my phone died right in the middle of my asking that a few minutes ago?
Well, Chuck had answered that. You may not have heard him, that we haven't done any additional.
Okay, nothing.
Additional
Okay,
concepts.
I see. Thank you very much.
So if the Albemarle Board of Supervisors is meeting on this on August 5th, then I could send out a notice to the policy board list about that meeting, where there'd be an opportunity for everybody to review the project. And then it's up to the policy board if you want me to also schedule a separate meeting. It would have to be in the next couple weeks before the 17th to review the project at a time. And then we can come back to it for a vote of support or not support in the September meeting.
May I please interrupt to say that if the MPO could host its information webinar first, the August 5th meeting is already a jammed agenda, and so we could have a public discussion briefly, but if the public comment is taken at more generated at the webinar or your MPO-based meeting the week before, then that would be tremendously helpful, because we're basically be jamming this discussion in to an already packed agenda. I think Ned would confirm that if he were on the phone. So.
I am back on, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay, good. We would need to take a public action at the August 5th meeting in some fashion, in some way, in order to have it come back to the MPO. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that the policy board would like me to schedule a public meeting to review the Fontaine Ave interchange improvements before the August 5th board meeting, which I'm happy to do. I hope I can find a time when everybody can come on such short notice, but we can do our best. Is that correct? Guys, does anybody object to that?
No.
Right, I will do that. So we still have a resolution that you can decide if you want to make a motion to pass that would support only the Hillsdale Drive South extension and the Hydraulic Road and US 29 projects for smart scale funding.
Move to support that resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll do the roll call. Ann Malik?
Yes.
Michael Payne?
Yes.
Ned Galloway?
Yes.
John Lynch?
Yes.
So the motion is passed, and I will get that resolution to you for your signature. The next item on the agenda is a formal resolution of support for the new FOIA officer. FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act. It's a federal act that allows people, the public, to know what their government is doing. So all of our meeting notes, all of our documents are open to the public. If they wish to review any of them, they can make a request to us or any other public agency through the Freedom of Information Act. So we're required to have a officer who would be a specific contact person for the public to contact in order to access the documents that they're requesting. And I will pull up that resolution. So the TJPDC also passed a similar resolution to this. It's kind of just designating David. I'm so sorry, Sandy. I can't remember his last name. I never call him. David Blunt. Yeah, David Blunt, one of our staff people. He's our policy person as the Freedom of Information Act officer. So this resolution would just designate him as the officer.
I don't have any questions. I don't know if anyone else does.
Good luck, David, is all I can say. And I will make this motion to appoint David as the FOIA officer. Thank you.
Second?
I'll second it.
So Ned seconded it, is that?
Yep.
Right, I'll call roll. Ann Malik,
Yes.
Michael Payne,
Yes.
Ned Galloway,
Yes.
John Lynch.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. The next item is just a discussion. and it's the process and use of committees and development of smart scale projects. We have a memo that Chip prepared, and I will pull that up. And then Chip, do you want to go over this?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. And it was nice. It's already been mentioned a couple of times earlier that in this process for Smart Scale, this round, we have already had 2 projects that have come before us, one being an MPO project, and most recently a project within the city of Charlottesville. For the MPO, it was the Route 20 bike path project, and in Charlottesville, it was the Preston and Grady intersection project that a lot of community feedback came in concern that in putting together these projects that there wasn't adequate community input during the process. And so we would like to try to correct that, at least for the policy board projects. I really want to kind of emphasize this, is that we're not proposing that the city or Albemarle County, I think they should make decisions on how best to move forward with projects that they intend to submit. But for the MPO policy board, we'd like to take a look at putting together a policy that will somehow identify what I would call, possibly controversial projects, bigger projects, larger scale projects that demand more time and community involvement prior to the pre-application period. That way, by the time we're getting to where we are right now, hopefully everybody will at least be knowledgeable of the details of the concept and will have had a chance to provide input. I don't have to tell all of you, we can't meet every one of the demands and requests from everybody, but at least everybody hopefully will feel that they've had a better opportunity. I do want to say too, though, that I do not think that we could do this for 4 projects. What I envision is something on a much, much smaller scale, but still along the model of the hydraulic and Route 29 solutions, where if we identify 1 or 2 projects for a smart scale round, we can have some pretty extensive engagement throughout the conceptual design process. The downside, the positive is, of course, opening up for a lot more opportunity for community engagement. The downside would be a couple, is that the projects that we want to pursue have to be identified much, much earlier than they have been in the past, which would mean, perhaps more work on the local government staff and the local government bodies to recommend projects to the MPO. Our technical and citizens advisory committee would have to work earlier to identify the projects that we wanted to move forward. The other kind of downside to it is that once we get closer to the pre-application and the period, then VDOT assists with a lot of the conceptual design. In this process, VDOT may not be able to help with that design work. The MPO, for 1 or 2 projects every smart scale rounds, we can organize and we can facilitate the discussions, but we aren't design professionals. So somewhere the funding would have to be found for the design work to look at the concepts. Right now, we aren't trying to drill down and define exactly what that policy would be. One of the first steps we would have to entertain is begin working with the MPO technical committee, the citizens advisory committee, and the staff from VDOT, Albemarle County, and City of Charlottesville, just to get the parameters, and then start trying to put together the details of a policy that we would then come back to you with for approval. But what I'm envisioning is something that immediately after the scores are given from a current smart scale project, which is usually January or February, then we could begin looking at what the possible projects are for the next smart scale round. In the past, we have normally taken projects that didn't score very well that we had submitted and tried to revise those. You know, take one big project and break it down into 2 or 3 smaller projects, or take a total review of it and revise it so that we can try to still reach the same benefits, but at a lower cost, or try to find money to match. So that would begin to occur immediately after the scoring process, and would then work its way into a 12 or 16-month period with community engagement. Again, we could probably do this for 1 or 2 projects every round. Hopefully, at least 2 of the projects every round will be smaller in scale and wouldn't require this type of effort. I'll be glad to try to answer questions and just see if this may be the direction you would like for us to look.
I would love to speak. Somebody decide when you want to call on us.
Go ahead, Ann.
Okay. So I appreciate what Chip has said, but I think there are some other perhaps smaller things that need to be adjusted that will be able to be done in-house that will, I think, make it simpler to then accomplish the things that Chip is talking about, which is the bigger sort of HPAP type model discussion. What, in my opinion, what happened, it was not an issue of lack of knowledge about a project. It was the fact that the decisions that ruled out other choices of trail locations were made by a group of people totally out of view, and not county staff, all county staff, but private advocacy groups involved. And they were making decisions about spending money. And the choice that they made without everybody else getting to discuss this then caused all the money that was spent for the VDOT designer to be wasted. So I want to prevent those kinds of things from happening again, and that we have a much clearer process start to finish of where these discussions are going to happen, that they're going to have agendas and meeting minutes, and that we do these things officially so that we don't get caught behind again. So, and the options, maybe this is only the 2nd year of pre-application, and so that's why we're having such a hard time with this. But I was appalled on the 1st of April to find out that all the options that we had thought we were going to get to decide after pre-application had already happened. And so that's really where I'm coming at this. I think if that orderly process happens, it will not take 18 months. It will already be going on a regular basis. And then we have a shorter, big gatherings of meetings similar to the hydraulic thing, which was still 6 months, I think, and be able to develop a process that people can support. So that's a long rant, but that really, I wanted to make sure to get those issues out there before we went too far down the pipe. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
I guess you said you'd have the capacity to, do 1 or 2. Would that still require additional resources in terms of that design piece that you were mentioning?
Yes, we do not have design capacity at all. So anything from a design standpoint would have to be funded elsewhere. We have worked very closely with VDOT. Again, if we're able to ask them early enough that they're able to consider us in their Culpeper or district budget for help. But again, we have to plan early for that. And if that's not available, then that would have to come from the local governments.
Is there a sense of what kind of increase in resources would be needed to make that happen?
It's completely project specific. I'm not about to start talking about, the high end, which is a hydraulic in 29 type project. We certainly aren't anticipating something to that extent. It could, and this is something Chuck and John could probably answer much, much better to me, but I mean, we could spend $20,000 or we could spend $100,000 in the design. And I'd be glad for John or Chuck because they know it much better than I do.
Yeah, I can chime in, unless John wants to.
No, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, it varies. We have consultant capacity, plus we can use in-house staff, both from our traffic engineering section and from our L&D staff. And some of the projects, a number of the ones that we're doing in-house, assisting the county on several of their projects. And we have consultants, Baker's working on the one for the hydraulic changes just because they were the ones who did the overall project before. A lot of them, especially the ones that are resubmissions, we're doing that design and cost estimating in-house. So we do have that ability. It's just we need time to do that and just to work it in with our regular work that we do as an ongoing basis. But we can work the logistics, and if it's new project, I may want to look at a consultant doing it. If it's something that we're just reworking something that's existing, we may want to look at doing it in-house. So but we can sort of provide a lot of those services to assist as much as possible. We have time and folks to do the work.
Thank you. I guess the final question I have is, I guess when it comes to identifying those like one or two projects that are the most controversial or most in need of this increased community engagement, is that just determined coming from the direction of the policy board, or?
Yeah, our thought was that we would, clearly in the policy, try to determine some kind of determining factors of what would push it over the line or keep it under the line. Have the technical committee and the citizen advisory committee both make recommendations then to the policy board. The MPO policy board then would make the final determination on that. The MPO policy board would also make the final determination that if any type of outside committee were to be utilized for this, the MPO policy board would be appointing that committee.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. I don't know if anyone else does.
This is Ned. Does this get at what your concerns are, Ann? What they're proposing?
Yes, I think it does. And I think the locality working with MPO staff would be able to quickly figure out each year which projects would benefit the most from this. Because I know Kevin and Dan, our transportation people, will be all over this as well.
I mean, I don't disagree or not support this. I just would want to say that we all have shrinking resources and capacity right now that, part of the effort, in my opinion, is educating people how the smart scale process works. Because before they get funded, it's a big if, right? Like we've learned that the last round. And my local folks who have local projects, that when they're coming out and talking to me about their concerns, well, this isn't even far enough along yet that there is a part of this that once it gets funded, there's plenty of time still for engagement if it gets funded. So that I just don't want to be doing overkill on things that could be happening anyway before, and then just have it be for naught because it doesn't get funded. Case in point, there was a roundabout at Penn Park Lane, the last round, and I remember spending a lot of time answering questions and concerns and things in our CACs, our community advisory councils or committees, and the project didn't get funded. It's not even in the realm of thinking right now for the next round of smart scale applications. There's a whole corridor study going on. So had a lot of time and effort been put into place for that. I don't think that project rises to what Ann's speaking about the trail. I think it's was a lower level type thing, but to think that we would put a lot of extra time and energy or staff capacity into that, but then not have it get funded and it's not even in the conversations the next round would be a loss of time that we couldn't recoup. So again, I support it moving forward, but just being cautious that if it really is a project that would meet that level of concern that we'd want to expend that staff time and resources on.
And that's very much our thought. And so we will move forward on this, keeping in mind we want to meet the goals, but keep it as streamlined as possible.
Hey, Poscom.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Okay.
Hey, Possum.
Will do. Thank you.
So was there a motion on the table, or do we need to make?
We don't.
No.
You've given us direction.
Wasn't a motion. Got it.
Yep. We're good. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a review of the draft public participation plan. Sandy, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, just real briefly to update you all, this is a document that is required in the federal regulations for MPOs to have a plan on how to make sure that we are getting public input on our planning documents and processes. There are specific ones that are listed, but of course, you know, we want to, as we've been talking about with Smart Scale, for example, even when we're not required, we want to make sure that we're you know, making every effort to always be thinking about how to keep the public engaged and aware of what's going on. So this is one document that demonstrates to the FHWA and the FTA, which are the federal bodies that fund the MPO activities, that we are going to meet the requirements that are set forth in the regulations. So this is not a major overhaul of the plan that we're suggesting. The reason I started looking at this was because of the state of emergency due to COVID-19 and some of the electronic meetings and communication and public outreach that was happening. We realized that that probably needs to be reflected in this document so that it is accounted for when we're in this situation. But then just also reviewing the plan to see where, you know, certain practices that were referenced needed to be updated, and looking at a couple of other factors that we needed to probably do a better job of addressing effectively. So really what I want to emphasize is that part of the discussion about this public participation plan update led to us looking at the Planning District Commission as a whole across all of the program areas. So while this document is intended to show how we are going to meet the minimum federal requirements, we also wanted to keep all of the things that are in this document as far as requirements at a very high level so that we would have the opportunity and the flexibility to customize any of our outreach and public engagement efforts as much as possible to what would make sense for individual programs and planning activities beyond the minimum requirements. So, so that's really what I want to emphasize is we're committed to going beyond this and doing more than this, but we think that this plan updates it, makes it more relevant and more timely, reflects our current practices and programs as the MPO and the PDC as an organization, and then also considers improvements in some of the areas that needed to be addressed a little bit more specifically, like our communication with underserved communities and how to do that a little bit more effectively. So you have a draft review. I did get some comments back already from John. They just asked that we update some of the language and references to their organization, that kind of thing. Nothing substantive. Those are not reflected in the draft public participation plan yet. I'm going to do that though before we post it to be shared publicly. But what's going to happen is that if you all have any comments you want us to hear now, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, we are going to prepare the plan to be posted publicly. There's a 45-day public comment requirement. So we'll get that posted and we'll share it through social media and through mailing list blasts and that kind of thing. We'll do our best to get the word out in as many different channels as we can for public feedback. And then at our next meeting, we'll have the final draft of the plan and a summary of any public feedback that we get for you all to consider as far as moving forward with adopting a revised version of the plan. Do you all have any questions or comments at this point?
I do. This is Anne. And during the whole discussion about the shared use path, I spent a lot of time with our existing PPP. And I remember that more than a year ago, Wood had described all the work that was going on to try to update it. But this is a really important document, and I think not following even the one we have was what got us into trouble with the trail. So these are very closely linked in my mind, and I looked carefully but did not see, and perhaps it's in there, things about minutes and agendas, and because if to have public participation, you have to have a way for people to find information. And if there are no minutes and no meetings on these groups who are meeting, then that can't happen. So please consider ways that you can add a few words or a phrase or a bullet point under some of these to put in the plan that we intend to not have little independent groups of people going off spending public money and not keeping any records of what they're doing, because that will help give us something to rely on. If things start to go astray, we can pull this plan out and say, wait a minute, no, we're not doing that. So please consider that. And when you have the VDOT wording, would you please resend it with the comments highlighted as you did with the blue for the thing you added so that we can have another look?
Yeah, no, not all of the changes I highlight or I made were in blue. Those were for comments to come back. But if you want me to, I can go back and highlight all the changes to direct you to those. But yeah, I'll be happy to send it out again.
Well, I do not want you to do a ton of work, but it's really hard for me to remember what was there before if I don't see the changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, are there any other comments or questions on this?
I don't have any.
Okay. We can move to the next item on the agenda, which is staff updates. The first item is Virginia's draft 2124 STIP is open for public comment and review. It's on the website. And this is what relates to our TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, that you guys reviewed and approved in the last meeting. We talked about amending it in this meeting. So this is just for the entire state. It's the funding allocations for transportation for the entire state for federal funds. So that's up on the website. That's just information for you all if you want to review it and make comments on it. It's during their comment period now. The next item is just an update on the area, the MPO area design and construction projects. We just prepared a little kind of flyer for you and the public on where to find information about transportation in the MPO area. So there's the Virginia Department of Transportation, and then there's some links here that you can see where you can find out more information about the projects that are under construction. So these projects have already been funded and now they're going to start construction or are under construction. And you can contact the Culpeper District Office with questions about that. And then there's also Albemarle County has some construction projects. So these are links to the Albemarle County construction projects. I listed a couple of upcoming projects that the MPO Policy Board might be interested in. And then also the City of Charlottesville has a few construction projects as well. And this is links to their construction projects. And again, I listed the most pertinent projects and links to those and who to contact if you have questions about them. So that's just an informational piece I don't know if there's any questions or comments. The next item is the Invest in America bill. Chip, do you want to go over this? You're on mute. There you go.
If you'll just pull that up. And if I can, I may talk about the next two agenda items because they're both, while informational, you may choose to ask us and vote to send these out. The first is a bill that's in Congress right now that's called the Invest in America bill. It's an infrastructure funding bill, and MPOs around the country are sending support letters for Congress to consider funding, trying to get our roadway and other transportation infrastructure back up to the level that it deserves. If this is something that you would like for us to send to and have our chair to sign for our congressional members, we could do that for you. I tried to put enough information in there to make it kind of clear of what we would be supporting. The other is a localized bill that's has been submitted by one of Virginia's congressmen, which is called the Long Bridge Congressional Act. It is to fund money to Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. For the construction of an additional leg of the Long Bridge. The Long Bridge is a rail bridge that crosses the Potomac from Virginia into D.C. And right now, the Long Bridge, as its current condition, is at 98% capacity. And every Amtrak train that runs from Virginia into DC has to cross this long bridge. And so at 98% capacity, we can't increase any passenger rail from Virginia to DC until this long bridge is improved. It's a $1 billion to $2 billion project. It's currently in the environmental impact statement phase, but it's going to need congressional support to get funded. And so we could also, write a letter of support for this Long Bridge Act at the same time.
I love that idea. And would you also please share the digital text with the jurisdictions, because then we can send our own board letter that will help to fill the mailbox up there.
I sure can. And just as a reminder, yes, as a reminder too, it just hit me. We several months ago sent a support letter to Virginia, the Department of Rail Public Transportation, the Secretary and VDOT in support of the Long Bridge project, but this would be a congressional support letter. And if you would like, we could take a motion on both of these asking us to submit.
I would make a motion to support sending both letters of support.
Second?
I'll call roll. Ann Malik,
Yes?
Michael Payne,
Yes.
Ned Galloway,
Yes?
John Lynch.
Yes.
The motion passes. We'll prepare those letters and send them to you for your signature and then send them out. Are there any other additional items to add to the agenda?
I didn't have any.
And then the last item on our agenda is additional matters from the public. At this time, the public is welcome to provide comments. There's a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. If you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself and start speaking. You can also raise your hand using the feature in Zoom, or if you're on the phone, you press *9 to raise your hand. Or if you would like to, you can use the Zoom group chat and we can read your comment.
Is there anybody with their hand raised?
No.
All right. Well, if there's no public comments, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Motion carries.
All we have to do is stand up and go. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Great
Yeah,
meeting.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. Thank you.
Thank you, all righty.
Thanks, everyone.